Welcome to the Hey Soul Sister podcast, where Mel Histon will guide you through life's big questions and bring you one step closer to doing this crazy journey as best you can.
I'm a woman in my 40s. I'm going to own that. I'm in my 40s and I'm a size 12. I can get a bit scared going shopping sometimes. It can be, especially going to a store that I haven't been in for a while and trying on dresses. It gets a bit cringeworthy sometimes in the change room, wondering if I'm going to look terrible, feel terrible, or if by chance I'm going to look amazing. Now, when I went into Privy Fashion the other day, I went in and grabbed a whole full of different dresses and t-shirts and jeans and tops, tried them on. And for the first time in a long time, pretty much everything I tried on, I really thought I looked great. I thought I looked amazing. And that doesn't happen to me very often. And you know what? I was looking around the change room and there were the most beautiful affirmations on the walls there, just to remind me that I'm a real woman and I should feel really proud of that. Now, what I also love about Privy Fashion right now is they have a special for all of you listeners of Hey Soul Sister podcast. Just go to the website www.privy.com.au, and Privy's PRIVY. When you buy your purchases online, you will get a discount of 20% if you just enter in the promo code SISTA, SISTA, at the checkout. You're going to love them. I love them. And what else I love is that they're sponsoring Hey Soul Sister. Hey Soul Sisters, I have one amazing woman with me today. Now, she's not in the studio, she's on Zoom. There's all sorts of weird COVID stuff going on now, and plus we're also probably about 10 hours apart from each other. I have the fabulous Lisa Cox with me. Hey Lisa.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming on Hey Soul Sister podcast. Now, for any of you who don't know of Lisa, so Lisa was a young professional woman, a copywriter working in advertising agencies around Australia with the world at her feet. And then one day when she was 24 years old, she contracted an infection that changed the course of her life forever, leaving her with amputations, permanent damage to her brain affecting speech and memory, over 25% blind. She became epileptic and has had other health issues. But seriously, this has not held this fabulous woman back. Today, Lisa is a disability advocate, writer, motivational speaker, author of 2 books. He fights every day to remedy the underrepresentation and misrepresentation of people living with disabilities in our popular culture and society. But her story is one of untold resilience and is super inspirational. I'm so excited and happy to have you here on Hey Soul Sister. So thanks, Lisa.
Thanks so much for such an awesome intro. Wow, I feel really, really important. I'm here in my gym gear feeling really daggy. But that was a fantastic introduction and made me sound far more fabulous than I feel at the moment.
On the Zoom, you're looking fabulous in your gym gear. So, I mean, you've been on a crazy, incredible life journey.
It's been interesting, to say the least.
What was your life like before 24 years old, before you fell ill and went through that whole journey and acquired your disabilities?
It was fairly ordinary. It wasn't boring or anything, nothing exceptional.
Because you say that, but when I was reading about you, I'm like, oh, wow, she went for advertising agencies. She was like a young professional, 2 uni degrees. I'm like, I think you're being a little bit humble there.
No, I guess I did what a lot of people do. I went to school and I went to uni and I got my uni degrees and I moved interstate and I did my travel, went overseas and came back to Australia, moved interstate for work, worked in advertising for several years, and then the proverbial hit the fan, got really, really sick.
Yeah. So what were your degrees? It was a comms degree, is that right?
Comms degree, Bachelor of Business in Communication and Media.
Wonderful. Oh, I've got a Bachelor of Business too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
It's a good one to have off your sleeves.
Absolutely.
A jack of all trades.
Yeah. So you're from Brisbane originally?
Originally from Brisbane, moved to Melbourne because, well, love little old Brizzy, but anyone who knows media and marketing and communications, all happening in Sydney and Melbourne, so Brizzy is picking up a bit these days, but back then, way back when dinosaurs roamed the earth.
Oh, stop it. Stop it.
There was much more happening in Melbourne than Sydney, so that's when I decided to move interstate.
Do you know what? I always wanted to go and do the big smoke, but I kind of got as far as Perth and that was it. And I suppose some people would still say Perth's a big smoke.
Yeah, big smoke on the other side of Australia that I can't even, I've never been there because I don't have the guts to sit on a plane for that long. But
Cool.
I had plans. My plan was, which obviously never happened, to move over to bigger smoke again. So advertising agencies in America or London or something like that, and work over there because I really loved the big industry and loved the work I was doing. But Melbourne was as far as I got because obviously it all hit the fan, and here I am now.
So when did you start to feel ill?
Well, this is the funny thing, and I did mention this to you in an email. I said, funny this, because I have amnesia or memory loss. So a few months before the brain hemorrhage of the stroke that I had that really started the snowballing of everything, and a few months after, I don't remember anything. So I know that I had called Mum that I'm feeling a bit off. And the next thing I know, they wouldn't let me board the plane at Melbourne Airport. And according to the staff at the airport, I collapsed. And that's when they went, you're not going on the plane. We're putting you in an ambulance. And they took me to the hospital, none of which I remember. Did some tests and found out that I'd had the brain hemorrhage. And of course, remembering none of this. Spent the next 3 weeks in coma, 2 months on life support, and over a year in hospital after that. So my first memory of anything was in a hospital here in Brisbane, and that was maybe three or 4 months after that brain hemorrhage happened. I have no recollection of any of that. I don't even remember where I worked before my brain hemorrhage. I just changed jobs and just got a promotion and was really excited about that, was working awards at my new job. Don't remember where I worked, unfortunately. Some of the guys I had apparently dated, I hadn't remembered I'd broken up with my ex-boyfriend. Completely forgot all of that as well. So it wasn't just my stroke that I forgot. I forgot a few other important things as well. Yeah,
that must have been like a really crazy time for you, like not knowing what's going on.
It was a bit batshit crazy. So my family, apart from telling me that I'd just gone through this huge life-altering thing, you've had a stroke, and this, and your boyfriend of a few years, you broke up with him, and this. Oh, and by the way, your leg's going to be chopped off, and this. They were sort of drip-feeding me information as I needed to know it, and didn't obviously overwhelm me all at once.
Yeah.
There was certainly a lot to take in over a short period of time.
Do they know what caused the brain hemorrhage?
Yes, a Streptococcus A infection, Strep A, and it's an infection that you can pick up like a flu.
Yeah.
Some doctor's going to call the podcast and go, "That's not right."
Don't call. Don't call.
Yes, blame me because I obviously don't have a medical degree.
Yeah, it's good.
And my immune system, most immune systems can just, get rid of it. Mine obviously didn't, and it just went and had a party in my body and caused a brain hemorrhage, and then caused all of my organs to shut down. So every single organ of mine shut down, heart, liver, kidneys, etc. And that's why I was put on complete life support for 2 months.
Okay, so this is a dumb question, I realise, but if you're on life support, are you conscious?
I certainly have no recollection of it, so I don't know if I was on life support. Oh, no, I was in a coma for 3 months, and to my knowledge, I wasn't conscious in that coma. So I was out of the coma, but I don't remember the life support. So even though I was probably out of the coma, I have no recollection of life support. So I was probably conscious, but so heavily medicated.
You've got doctors and medical people going, oh, by the way, we're going to need to amputate your leg. And then they amputated your fingertips, 9 of your fingertips.
Yeah, that's correct. So I've still got my left thumb.
Which I read somewhere that you said your dad was so beautiful and optimistic. He was like, well, tell us what your dad said.
The surgeon came in and she's like, okay, so Lisa, we're going to have to amputate 9 of your fingertips. And Dad, being the optimist that he is, he's like, but you get to keep one. And I'm like, fuck off, Dad. Are you listening, Dad? And no.
Yeah.
He was so excited that I got to keep one. Of course, looking back on that now, I'm so excited that I have like one thumb left because it's the only thing that I have any sensation through. So if I have to say feel fabrics or sensations for anything, I get my left thumb out and that's what I use. But at the time, I was like, Dad, just shut up already.
Yeah. Were you devastated?
Of course. I was absolutely devastated. And what happened was when all of my organs shut down, they put me on some medication which brings blood back to all of your vital organs. And to bring all of the blood back, it means that blood goes away from your extremities like your nose and your fingers and your toes and they all turn black. So everything turned black, but I got to keep my nose, but everything else turned black, my fingers and toes, and they all got chopped off. So originally they were talking about chopping off both arms and both legs. So the fact that I only lost fingertips and toes and a leg, that's pretty awesome as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, absolutely devastated. Lost my blood flow, lost all my bits and pieces and things like that. So They first told me that I would lose my leg, and I just cried my eyes out. Woke up the next morning, went, what? Say what? What? Leg? No, what? Had completely forgotten the conversation.
Wow.
So they decided that, okay, let's not tell Lisa every day and make it Groundhog Day. We'll just wait until her brain gets a little bit better, or not the brain injury gets better, so to speak. But we'll wait a few weeks or a few months, and eventually they did tell me again, and of course I cried and was just devastated. But the next morning I woke up and I did remember, and it stuck, and they were like, okay, she's remembered now. That took a lot of talking to people. I thought the world is ending, and then I found out that my toes were going to have to go as well, and it's sort of the penny dropped. Oh, all the black bits are going. Okay, so my fingers are next, and it all fell into place. That's what's going to happen.
Want to save your soul? Review us on Apple Podcast.
Can I ask you a question? I read that you had died twice in hospital. Did you have any spiritual experiences when that happened?
No.
I've got a couple of people that I know that have been like, oh yeah, I had a near-death experience. And I was like, I just wondered if that was something you had experienced.
No, I don't want to make light of it or anything like that, because I know some people have some really beautiful experiences, and it would make so much more of an interesting podcast if I had some grandiose experience and just say this happened and there were fireworks and that happened, and nothing happened. And I wrote an article about this a little while ago and just said the fact that nothing happened and no cherubs came down with harps and all these things we see in Hollywood, and it's all the more reason that you have to live for now and live for today and do the thing, drink from the teacup, or do that thing and see that person or make that call or whatever it is, because you're not coming back. And I don't mean this with any disrespect, and again, don't call the podcast and don't call you. Don't call. But there is no second chance. Very well do it.
Here and now.
Because here and now, exactly, you don't get a second shot, in my experience anyway.
Yeah, and you were certainly doing that. So how long were you in hospital for all up then?
In hospital the first time for over a year.
Yeah.
There were about 5 different hospitals that first time.
Yeah.
And then I went home, and when I say home, just back to mum and dad's for a couple of weeks, and then had to go back into hospital again. Back to mum, dad's, back into hospital, and mum, dad's, back into hospital, and then there was a bit of that going on. So I would go back into hospital for what was supposed to be 2 days that would last for 2 weeks. And because of the nature of my compromised immune system and things like that, I would have to stay in an infectious disease ward, where I know people are in lockdown and things like that at the moment. And this was pre-social media and smartphones, but I would be in a bedroom all by myself. And to come in, people would have to dress in full PPE. And I couldn't scroll through a smartphone or anything to occupy my time. And that was how people would have to visit me after my operations, like my hip replacement and things like that, just because I was at high risk of getting infections and things like that. So there was a bit of that going on for a few years. And now I still go back into hospital every now and again for upkeep, as I call it, or
maintenance,
different procedures, upkeep and maintenance. And my yearly oil change and things like that.
Do you ever ask, or did you ever ask, why me?
Not really. I probably didn't use those words, and if I did, it probably had a few more swear words. You're like, what the fuck is just
what's just happened to me? What's happened to my body and my life?
Yeah, seriously, why? I guess I've always, just through my pre-disability life, had experiences, whether it's been through sport or other things, where you just, failure has just been, and I don't mean really traumatic failure, just playing sport and those sorts of things. Failure was something that happens, you get on with it. And not to compare a game of sport with really serious hospitalisation, but it helped me deal with it a bit. So in that respect, I was just a bit more like, well, okay, I can't control this, so it is what it is. I suppose I'll say no to that. Of course, I did sort of go, this is a bit shit, isn't it?
Did you ever go through bouts of depression or anything like that?
To say that, even though I never said why me, that's not to say that I didn't go through bouts of depression. I cried my effing eyes out. So absolutely got really, really, really upset when I found out I was going to lose my leg, for example. I was devastated. Yeah, no, absolutely. It was strange because there were moments of both ends of the spectrum, and I was like a bloody yo-yo in hospital. I really was.
Yeah.
1 minute I would just be so immensely grateful because I felt like the luckiest woman in the world. I was alive and I knew what I had been through, and holy shit, I was here. And yes, I was eating hospital food that tasted like dog poo, but who cared? I was alive, and I shouldn't be. And wow, life's pretty bloody awesome. But then the next day, I'm like, reality hit, and I'm like, but my leg's getting chopped off next week. Fuck, that sucks. Yeah, I just want to cry again. So I was sort of these two extremes, and eventually it sort of all mellowed out a bit, but. Yeah, they were I'm not going to Pollyanna and sugarcoat the situation. There was certainly some really, really dark times there.
Want to fill your soul with more? Go to thesisterco.com.
I'm guessing like going through your road to recovery, that's years, it sounds like. When did you kind of go, okay, I want to become an advocate for disability? Like, how did that all happen? And the reason why I ask that is because it's really interesting. I have found through living life and meeting people on my own experiences, shit happens, like some really, really bad shit happens. And we all have a choice of how we're going to deal with that. And we all have moments of fetal position in the floor, you know, curled up in the ball in the corner of the room. And some of us never leave that. But I go, you're not that person. The work that you're doing now is awesome, and, you know, really making change in our society and community. So how did you go from that to all the wonderful work you're doing now?
It wasn't something that I immediately came out of the coma and went, right, disability advocacy, that's my thing. Yeah. I at first went, hell no, I don't want to borrow that. It's other people are doing a fantastic job, not my thing, not my place. But the more I looked into it, looked at it, spent time with other disability advocates, etc., like there's almost like a gap in the market, to use a business term. And I had this, not a unique skill set, but...
Yeah, because you've worked in media.
Worked in media and business and advertising, and given all the fantastic disability advocates that are out there doing a really, really great job, amongst all of them, I had a unique skill set amongst all of them. So I'm like, well, I can do something with this. So that's when I decided to do a bit more with that. That's essentially how I got into it. And I thought, they are all doing a really great job with what they are doing, but I can do more and bring another voice.
And it's interesting because, you know, I look at you and the research and reading that I've done about you, I'm like, you have amazing skills, like an amazing experience. It actually, even though it probably didn't necessarily, might not have felt like that to you, but I go, wow, you would be such a wonderful progression because you have all those skills and, you know, you've speak beautifully, you are gorgeous. But I'm like, that's the world we live in as well. You know what I mean? I kind of almost equated it a bit with the hero's journey for you. So do you mind me asking, was part of your decision to start doing advocacy work, did that come about in the way that maybe people responded or changed the way that they reacted to you now that you had acquired disabilities?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, people definitely started to treat me differently. And I suppose for two ways to look at that. Firstly, they were I'll call them my loved ones, and they treated me very differently. And part of that was understandable. They wrapped me in cotton wool, I suppose, but so much of that was because they had been there watching me be kept alive by machines for months and not knowing if I'd live or die. And it was really understandable that they wrapped me in cotton wool and were treating me like this frail little thing, and that's okay. So understandable. But when people treat me like that these days, strangers in the street treat me like this, or people in the boardroom treat me like this frail little thing still. That's what frustrates me. That really, really frustrates me. And that's something that's one of the many, many, many reasons that I do the work I do, because not just for me, but for the millions of other people out there with disabilities, so that they're not being treated like that in the boardroom of the coffee shop or wherever else they may be, because we're not frail little things. We're, generally speaking, normal people just going about our lives, just trying to get on with it.
Actually, and I read something as well that you had said, which I thought was awesome. You said that often people set the bar way too low for people with disabilities. I read that and I was like, that's awesome. It's so true, yeah.
It's so true. And fun fact for the day, I know more people doing their PhD with disabilities than without. I do happen to know more people without disabilities than with. Yet we have such a low expectation of people with disabilities, and so much of that comes back to representations in the media and in popular culture. And when your listeners think about it, that's because the depictions we see of people with disabilities generally, unless they're Paralympians, and they're awesome people, don't get me wrong, generally the other depictions we see are the very sad, lonely, depressed people who are, you know, begging on the streets or in hospital beds. And I'm not denying there are some really tragic stories out there. I've seen some of them personally and they're heartbreaking, but we don't ever see this huge portion of people in the middle, the quote unquote normal people, just driving the kids to school, doing the housework, everything else that people with disabilities do, going to work, all those sorts of things. So it's really great to see slowly but surely a few changes. But I certainly like to see a lot more.
Yeah, and what are some of the areas that you think in terms of like business that where we could be better, more inclusive in terms of disability?
Start by employing people with disabilities, not just in the mailroom or in the really low-level jobs packing boxes. So I know Sephora over in the United States did something recently and they sent out hundreds of press releases, and their CEO was on the news puffing out his chest and telling everyone how wonderful they were, and we've just released 150 jobs for disabled people and how good are we, and they're all over the internet. And I thought, this sounds a bit suspicious. They're a bit too proud of themselves. And I dug a bit deeper. And, of course, the jobs were only in the warehouse. And I'm not denying that they're great jobs for some people. Absolutely great. But where are the jobs in the stores, in the HR department, in the finance department, in the boardroom front-facing in the advertisements, for example, in the fire department. They're the sorts of things we need to do. Hire people with disabilities throughout the chain, just some of the ways.
Let's get soulful on social media. Search the Sister Code Facebook page and follow us on Instagram.
Now, you also do really wonderful work writing about body image. You've written a couple of books, Does My Bum Look Big in This Ad? And Media Muscle. And I think it was maybe on your blog, you were calling the fashion industry to account, which I thought was awesome. And I probably had not really stopped to consider that myself, which is why it's great that you're doing your writing and spreading those messages out there, because I was like, I actually hadn't stopped to think about that. How often in the fashion industry do we see models that may have a disability? And that's one way that the fashion industry can be more inclusive.
First of all, credit where credit's due, the fashion industry has evolved a little bit in that they have, included some diversity over the last couple of decades. I'm old enough to remember when the first size 12 model was on the front of a magazine and everyone lost their minds because, oh my God, size 12, she's huge.
Yes.
And we know that's not the case. And these days it's quite a normal thing to do when curve models, as they prefer to be called. Curve models are just a part of mainstream modelling agencies and those sorts of things. So that is quite normal. But I was interviewing designers on catwalks. Sorry, not on catwalks, on red carpets a couple of years ago, and they're all puffing up their chests and, oh yes, our collection was so diverse, it's so diverse, so diverse. And I thought, great, can't wait to see this. And there were a couple of models of colour and a couple of plus-size models, but there was no disabled models. So I've often referred to disability as the least palatable form of diversity because businesses and brands want to tick that diversity box. So often I'll get somebody of colour or somebody other than disability to sort of tick the diversity box and look all woke. Yeah, it would be nice to see disability included in the diversity discussion. And I suppose we'll include gender in there as well, because sometimes I wrote a piece for the HuffPost a couple of years ago about gender being the discussion point when it comes to diversity, but disability still not getting a look in.
Have you had any response from the fashion industry at all?
Yes, I did. Yeah, it was really exciting. This year, for the first year ever, Australian Fashion Week included disability in Australian Fashion Week, not just one wheelchair on a catwalk to tick a diversity box or one tokenistic thing, but holistically they did it in several different ways. They had consultants behind the scenes. I was speaking on a panel. They had a number of different models on the catwalk. For the first year, it was a really good effort. Of course, things could have been done differently, could have been done better, but for the first year, it wasn't too bad. So we're already in discussions about how things can be done better for next year, which is great. So big moment for Australian fashion after many years of trying to get that off the ground, I think.
Yeah, and hats off for you to actually raising awareness around that issue and calling the fashion industry to account. Like that's awesome.
Very much. Yeah, there were lots of people who'd been calling to account for a while, but it had been something that we'd been hoping for a while, because it had been, I suppose, New York, Paris, Milan, and a couple of the other big international fashion weeks had people with disabilities involved for years, and it was really no big deal, but Australia was still not doing it, and it
lagging behind.
I know, and it was. I'm really, really proud of the organisers, and like I said, mistakes were made, and everyone acknowledges that. But I'm still really proud of the guys behind it. They did a great job.
What do you hope to achieve in terms of your advocacy work for people with disability, and what's your big vision, I guess?
My big vision is that I don't have anything to do in a few years. Just sit around and everyone's like, shut up, you know what you're talking about, be quiet. because at the moment I have to explain and educate and explain, which is fine.
Yeah.
But it would be really nice if everyone just went, duh, we know what inclusivity is. Of course, we understand why disabled talent needs to be used in advertising. It's obvious. Because at the moment, brands and advertisers and businesses still need to be reminded why a 20% market share is being lost by not capitalising on the disability dollar.
Yeah, it's interesting. I say a similar thing with a domestic violence charity I started, Got Your Back, Sista. And I say to people all the time, actually, wouldn't it be great if we didn't need to exist? Really?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I hear you. That was a really great answer. I'm like, when you said that, I'm like, yeah, I say that all the time.
Want to save your soul? Review us on Apple Podcast.
What's your biggest challenge, do you think?
Oh, we've already talked about a few of them.
Yeah.
Low expectations.
Yeah.
Of me or of the disability community as a whole.
Yeah.
Assumptions.
Yeah.
Of myself or of my community and people with disabilities as a whole, what I am capable of or what people like me are capable of. I know when I first raised the idea of including disability in Fashion Week to a few people, I was told, oh, that's a bit ambitious. Oh, don't be silly. Oh, by some very high-profile people in fashion too.
Wow.
So,
well, you did it.
Yes. So there you go. These aren't just one-off events. These are the sorts of things that I come up against time after time, day after day, different examples each time.
Yeah.
These sorts of things happen all the time. Different words are used, and it's just something you get used to, and you just learn to use it as fuel.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that you say that, because my next question was around, with everything that you have gone through and, you know, what you've learned about yourself and about life, have you struggled on your journey? Have you struggled with your self-worth at any stage? And I suppose the lesson for people, how did you overcome that?
I think I'd be absolutely lying if I said I'd never ever have. And I think any woman listening would know I'm lying if I said I never ever have, because every woman has, every person has. Yeah. And I know the funny thing is, the ironic thing is that as a 17-year-old girl, completely non-disabled, I struggled more with my self-worth, with a completely flat chest. Where are my boobs? Am I normal? Yeah. I struggled more with my self-worth then than I struggled with my self-worth as a 27-year-old wheelchair, using amputee, covered in scars, all the rest. Yes. Yeah. Very, very different looking. Yeah, so that just makes me smile sometimes and reminds me of, I don't know if it's how far I've come, but yeah, anyway, so it's all relative in some ways. But I guess some of it, in terms of how I coped, and maybe it's just been an age thing, but my give a shit has, I give far fewer fucks these days. I'm like, I hope I'm allowed to.
You totally are. That's all good. In other episodes, I say vagina a lot, so it's all good.
Far fewer fucks these days. I really, really do. And anyone who, I mean, I have a wonderful partner, a wonderful husband who doesn't care about all of these so-called flaws and imperfections. If anyone wants to use those words, I don't, but they're what they are. But anyone who does want to care about the way you look, or who does want to give a fuck about your body or your worth, they're not worth your time in the first place. First, I don't care about trying to please people. To make everybody happy and So that's all coming out right. This is word vomit coming out now.
No, but it's so true, because I think that's one of my life lessons is actually, as I've gotten older, it's like, okay, who do I actually want in my life? Who lifts me up and who has the same values and the same soulfulness or whatever that I do? Not that we all have to be the same, not saying that at all, but I'm like, you probably just go, actually, you know what? I'm not going to cop that bullshit.
You've said it so much more eloquently than I just did. So just take what you said and please insert your words over mine, because mine is just word vomit.
It's all good, my friend. It's all good. It's just about being real. It's about being real. Absolutely. I'm not a polished person, so it's all good. As you've probably told from this interview, it's all good.
Want to fill your soul with more? Go to thesistercode.com.
So what have you learned about life or yourself?
I suppose I was guilty of falling victim to media stereotypes about disability, and it's my own fault, and it's something I'm trying to rectify with my work at the moment. Falling victim to media stereotypes that disability was just the end of the road and your life was going to be miserable with them. And I have since learned that that's complete bullshit. You can have a wonderful, fulfilling life with disabilities. Yes, there are challenges, and I'm not trying to downplay that there are some really shit times and it's not all rainbows, butterflies and unicorns, but you can still have a great life with disabilities.
Yeah.
So that's what I have learned.
I love it. Thank you. Lisa, I'm really grateful. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your story and lessons and learnings on Hey Soul Sister. I'm like, we're literally all just trying to figure out this crazy life as best we can.
And still be working it out on my deathbed, I think.
Yeah. But, you're very humble, but, I look at you and I go, you're such an inspirational woman. Everything you've been through, but you've risen and you're out there doing you do, making change in the world. And that's awesome. We need more people like you. So thank you.
I'm here and I'm bloody grateful to be here every single day. So life is precious, so why not do something with it?
Life is precious, girls. Why not do something with it? Thank you. Now, Lisa, how can people find out about you?
My Instagram is probably the best place to go because I'm too lazy to be on all the platforms. So.
I love you to say that.
No, I have the pages, but I just don't get around to checking them. So if you message me on LinkedIn, you might get a message in 6 months' time going, is this still valid? So lisacox.co is Instagram, lisacox.co, and that's also my website.
Yeah, perfect. And sisters, jump on and check out Lisa's blog. She's got lots of really great articles there. I haven't read all of them, but I went through and read a few of them, and you do really great work, really great writing, and really thought-provoking. So thank you. Yeah, girls, go check it out, lisacox.co. Today's episode of Hey Soul Sister podcast is brought to you by the fabulous Privy Fashion. Now, they have a special for all of you listeners of Hey Soul Sister podcast. Just go to their website, www.privy.com.au, and Privy is PRIVY. When you make a purchase at the checkout, use the promo code SISTA, SISTA, and you'll get 20% off your purchases. It's for a short time only, so jump on and pick out some fabulous outfits. I love them. So jump on and pick out some fabulous outfits. I love them. And thanks again, Privy, for supporting Hey Soul Sister podcast.
Thanks for listening to Hey Soul Sister with Mel Histon. What would help you on your crazy life journey? Email Melissa at thesistercode.com.